like that song. I
Thanks.
never get tired of that song.
That's Dwayne
Yes.
Zing.
Not Dwayne Reed, that's the other
No,
guy.
that's a different guy.
Good evening,
Medication.
and welcome to Dear Dad.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tony Disclafani.
And I'm Dan Jacobs, and you are watching Dear Dad. It is Thursday night.
It is November 21st.
Yes,
is the
it
date.
is. The year 2013. So if you're tuning in or if you're watching this 40 years from now in the archives, this is what we look like then.
Hey, you know, I just had a thought.
Really?
I know, that's the dangerous part, isn't it?
You had a thought. Back up.
Okay.
So what's your thought?
So if radio waves
Should I move
if
away?
radio waves go on forever,
Yes.
okay,
Apparently.
that's the theory, right? So somewhere, someone on Pluto is just getting to see.
Well, Pluto's not a planet.
Oh, it's not a planet.
It's just
it's
a
an
big
asteroid in the
hunk of
belt.
rock.
Yeah. So if they're in Pluto and they're just trying
Pluto?
to Pluto,
Oh,
and they're
Pluto
trying
is
to
the nemesis of Popeye.
yeah,
Okay, but Pluto, go ahead.
they're trying to tune in their television. They might be seeing I Love Lucy for the first time.
They might.
Yeah.
So
So
they
does
might be seeing your
does
show of
our
shows
internet
with
never
Sid
leaves the
Caesar.
planet, right?
Our
It's not
internet is
broadcast.
broadcasting
It's
to
the world,
yes.
but not the universe.
Well, if they can tap into
If they have
like,
FiOS, they probably can get it.
they probably could.
Yeah, they can get it.
They could. So like in 1,000 years from now, some guy with one eye in the middle of his head and really big ears could be watching us going, these guys were idiots.
That's when the body optimizes.
Is that what happens?
I think that's what we're trying to understand. But anyway, so today.
Well, what did you doing today?
Today
Well, I know what you did yesterday. You had a big event yesterday.
I had a big event yesterday.
What did you do
I bought a
yesterday?
car.
You bought a
Actually, I
car.
bought a car on Monday. I picked it up yesterday.
And for a guy, you know, this is what we talk to guys. That's a big deal.
It is.
You get a new car.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, I went to the store and picked up a ham. It's, you got a car. So what'd you end up, did you really, and you've been looking for a while.
I have been. I'm the type of person that does a lot of research when I do something. So, you know, I like to look into things. Yeah, well, you know me.
Shock.
The rest of the world
That's it,
doesn't
okay.
know me.
Well, and that's a good thing. You're not super spontaneous when it comes
Right.
to major decisions.
Right.
And I sometimes am too spontaneous when it comes to major decisions.
But when you're making, you know, a major purchase for your
Right.
family, you should give it as much thought as you can, right?
Right.
You don't be in a rush, and do some research, and then try to get the best deal. And I'll just say what's fair,
Right?
you know, because I'm in purchasing. I'm the director of purchasing for a large corporation, and
what that means,
a lot of times
that means you
people
buy stuff.
I buy stuff, yeah.
So you know how to get the best deal generally.
A lot of times people ask, did you get the lowest price? Or is that the lowest price it could possibly be? And my answer to that is, you know what, there's always a lower price. You could always go back to someone at some point and say, you know, can you give it to me for a penny less? And then you can do that. And you probably could do that a couple of times between a different, you know, a few different companies, and you might get a penny here and there. But you need to get a fair price and the best value. And there's a lot of things that wrap around it. So it's the same thing with the car. You may have bought a car recently, and it may not have been, you know, the day after you buy the car, somebody may tell you, oh, I paid $100 less than that, or I paid $50 less than that.
Okay.
It's just the way it is. But don't think that you did a bad job.
And now sometimes the best price doesn't necessarily mean the best deal.
Right.
So
Right.
you have to look at everything that's involved with it.
Right. What I did was I went on the internet. It's a great tool. I don't know if you guys heard of the internet, but it's
Is
out
that
there.
like the World Wide Web?
That's just something like that. And I heard
I've heard
Dan Quayle. Did Dan Quayle? No, that wasn't Dan Quayle
That was,
that invented that. But anyway,
Dan Quayle's the guy who couldn't spell potato. Right.
yeah.
It was Al Gore.
So you go on and you could put, you know, best price paid for, you know, Mercury Zephyr or something like that.
Right.
They probably don't make Mercury Zephyrs anymore, but that's not
So
the
that's a
point.
good one to
Point
use.
is that that's what you can do. And then you're going to get things like the Edmunds.com, and you're going to get US Car, US News, Car Trader. All these sites are going to come up, and of course the guys who make the Mercury Zephyr, the Mercury. company will also have their information about what you should pay. And there's all things, there's list price, there's MSRP, there's invoice price, there's, best price paid. Your geographical area has a lot to do with it as well, because if a car is made in Tennessee and you live in New York, there's the destination charge involved with that.
Right.
If you're in Tennessee and you buy a car made in Tennessee, your destination charge could be 0 or less. So the price that you see on the internet may not be the price you could obtain in your area, the lowest price.
Right.
Okay, so you just have to be mindful of that. So you just need to figure it out, where you need to be, figure out what you could afford as a family or as a person, and then figure out what your payments, what kind of money you would have to borrow, what you could afford to put down, and go in there armed with a low price, a medium price, a high price, about what you want to, what you think you're going to be paying, less your deposit, the taxes for your state, okay, and then calculate out a payment based on what interest rates are being offered. So in my particular case, the car was being, an interest rate was being offered as 1.99.
Which is pretty low.
Right. And interest rate is a funny thing to calculate because, or difficult thing to calculate, because what you pay is you pay compounded interest. So if you take a loan for $20,000 and the first payment is for $1,000, okay, your first payment interest rate was calculated on $20,000. Your next interest rate is calculated on $19,000,
Right.
and so on. But if you went in and you put 20,000 times 1.9%, you'd get what's called straight interest, okay, straight line interest.
Basically, you're paying the
So you're
interest
not,
off
so you're not
first.
right. So you're not going to be able to calculate
Right.
the exact interest. That's not here nor there. Okay, but all that gives you is an estimate of about what your monthly payment should be if you reach one of the price levels you think you should have. So you're prepared when you go in and you talk about to the dealership about how to buy the car and what you want to buy and what you want in the car. You're prepared. You have a basic understanding of what the price should be. You have a basic understanding of what your payment would be in the end for the number of months you choose. Okay, and then when you finish your deal, take a look at your piece of paper. Did you get the price about where you thought it should be? Are the payments coming up to within $20 or $15 a month of what you thought they should be? If those things don't add up, then something funny has happened. And you just need to ask your salesman to just go over the numbers with you again and make sure you understand them fully.
Because
And
there's a point there that they could add and some
Yeah,
shenanigans. could
Yeah,
happen.
you know,
So you wanna be
I
careful.
know, I know there's a stereotype about the salespeople, used car salesmen, and the honesty and all that. There's a reason for those
I was going
things.
to say, with every
Yeah.
stereotype, there's a shred of
Yeah.
truth.
So there's a reasons for those things. So just educate yourself, use the internet, use some resources, talk to some friends that you know have bought the car or similar cars, and get a feeling for what you should be paying for it, what your payment should be, and then go for it and
So
get
you got
yourself
a
a
good
car.
deal?
Help stimulate the economy. I was happy. I have a fair deal.
Good.
Yeah.
And
Was it the lowest price that I saw on the internet? No, I wasn't able to obtain that. I tried.
But you're also living in a part of the country where rent is higher, utilities are higher, and all
Right.
that factors into it because the dealer,
Sure.
they all make about the same percentage of money. So
They
if
do.
you're in a part of the country where you're paying a lot less for rent and the utilities
Sure.
cost you half and the taxes are lower,
We're aligned.
they can give you a better deal and still make the same amount of money.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably part of the problem.
So the internet and the information you find out, it is a guide, and it helps you understand whether you're getting a good deal or not. But you may not always be able to reach that price.
And I think
So
you
you
bring
buy
up
the
a good-
car. Go ahead.
I think there's a good point, though, that if you go on the internet and you find a price and then you go to the dealer and it's different, don't automatically say, oh, you're trying to rip me off and walk out. You
No.
have to, I mean, let them try and explain why
Yeah, let them
their
go over
price
the
is
numbers with you
different.
again.
Yeah,
Let
okay.
them go. And if they're confusing you, and you don't feel that you understand what's happening exactly, don't be afraid to say, you know what, I'm not sure what I see here. I'm not sure
Mm-hmm.
why the differences are. I'd like to take the numbers back with me, and I'd like to talk to my friend,
Right.
whatever, he's an accountant, my dad, my husband, my wife, whatever.
Or
and
just
then
I
that
want to
gives
take
you,
a chance to look
sure,
at them.
that gives you time
Right.
to now examine them where you're not under pressure, where someone's not, maybe trying to not let you see something that you're going to see,
Right.
okay, that they don't want you to see. So don't feel,
obviously, their
don't feel that you
goal
have
is
to
to
go
get
in.
you to sign right that night.
Yeah, they don't
Because
wanna
they know
lose
if you
you.
walk out
They
the
don't
door,
want you to go out.
there's a chance you're not coming
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
But if you're not comfortable, don't just sign
Right.
on to that.
right. And if you put a deposit down on something in New York State, I don't know all the state's rules, but if you put a deposit down on a car, you're entitled to get that deposit back if you don't take the car. They have to refund your deposit.
100%?
100%. They're not going to put that towards another purchase or anything like that. That isn't how it works. You get your money back. You give them a thing, you get your money back.
What if you ordered the car? In other words, instead of saying I'm putting deposit on one on the lot, you say I want to order a car with this color, this inside, and you place a specialty order. Is that also?
I don't believe you have to take delivery on anything you're not satisfied with.
Okay.
So best thing you can do is give them a check as a deposit. And if you find out the next day you're not happy, you can call your bank and just stop the check. You can do that. You can give them a credit card if you have a good credit card like an American Express or a Visa.
Right.
And you could always call them and say, don't allow this charge to process if you're getting some trouble.
Because they will fight for you.
Oh yeah,
The credit card
companies are great. Yeah, yeah. They don't want to see you unhappy. They want you to pay on time. They don't want you to see you unhappy. So there's a couple of things you can do. And when you get the car, always pick the car up in the daylight, so you can look for any scratch or dent or ding. The back of my car, there's a little piece of the molding that's lifted off, and they noted it, and I'll bring it back to the dealership on Saturday. And they'll glue it back down or whatever they do to get it back to stick, and that's it. And then take delivery on your car and sign your papers and give them your deposit or whatever and start your payments, and that's it. But it doesn't have to be stressful. Do some homework, do a little research, and be educated when you go in there. And that's it. And remember, you don't have to spend your money in a place you don't feel comfortable with.
That's right.
Just thank you, shake their hand, whatever, and just leave if you don't feel like buying a vehicle from them.
That's right.
Okay? It's your money. Spend it where you like. So I have a new car.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And I'm afraid to drive it.
Yeah.
I don't want to get a scratch on it. We didn't drive it tonight.
No.
We came together in a car, and I picked them up in my old car. I was like, I don't want to drive
by
it.
the old car.
I don't want to drive it. I'm afraid to put scratches on it. Matt, I want to keep it as new as long as I can.
And
Matt.
today's a special day. You'd think I'd get a ride in this. You know
No.
what today is?
You know what I do know?
Do you know what today
There'll be
is?
no smoking in my car ever.
And that
For a
is-
number of reasons.
Why?
Because it's so unhealthy is the first reason.
And it stinks.
And it smells is the second reason.
In the cars, it's hard to
But what
get
does that
out.
have to do with this date, Dan?
Well, today is the third Thursday in November.
Okay?
And for the past 37 years, the third Thursday in November has been a special day. It's called the Great American Smokeout. And what happened is, back in the early 70s, some places in California had an idea to try and help people who quit smoking. So eventually they got to the third Thursday in 1976. It was November 18th. And they said, you know what, let's make a day, just one day, where we try and encourage people to quit smoking for one day, just to see if they can do
Right.
it. And on that day, nearly 1 million people
1
quit
million people
smoking
on that day.
On that day. 1 million people quit smoking for the day. Now, how many of them stayed quit, we really don't know, but at least
And they
it
do
gave
that
them-
by polling people and say, how did you do on...
Or
how'd you
did you do
and
it?
then
And it was a unique event at that time, but it caught on. It's sponsored by the American Cancer Society across the country, and every year they make this day about people trying to quit using tobacco. And today was the day, and it was focused on people who smoke trying to quit, even just for a day.
Right.
And there's
So
been
the
a-
thought process is if you could not smoke for one day, there's a possibility that you can give this up if you try. And that's,
You know,
that's the
to-
basis of it.
Because, as we know, it is difficult. You're an ex-smoker.
Yes.
I'm an ex-smoker. And it can be difficult, but I think that one day allows people to realize, you know what, maybe I can do this. Maybe it's something I should think about doing, because
Right.
as we also know, unless you're ready, it's difficult.
Yeah.
So you might not be ready to quit, but if you can think about it for one day,
One
and
day.
you can try it for one day, and you get through the day and say, you know what, that wasn't as bad as I thought. Maybe you'd be willing to try it again,
Maybe.
and you'd be willing to do it again.
So 37 years.
And there was a whole different,
Right.
I don't know if you knew this.
We've,
back in
as a
nine-
society, we've come a long way when it
Oh,
comes to
sure.
smoking.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
We're not done by any means, because there's still almost 20% of the adults in this nation smoke, which is still a lot of people that are dying from smoking-related illness. That's 1,200 people a day dying from. That's 5 airplanes full of people going. Now,
And it doesn't always come out that they died from causes of smoking. I mean, if somebody has a heart attack,
Exactly.
and they've been suffering from lung cancer for the last 2 years, sometimes it goes down as a heart attack.
Right. Well, most people think that you die from lung disease and lung cancer and pulmonary disease, but more people die from cardiovascular disease. 1/3 of all cardiovascular disease deaths is related to smoking. So it's not as many people with lung cancer. It's heart disease that's getting them. But just to go
Give us
back a little
the
bit.
whole cardiovascular thing, so we have it.
Well, when you smoke, there's chemicals and toxins in the tobacco that change what's called the endothelial cells, and those are the cells that line your blood vessels. So these chemicals change the way those cells interact, basically, and they're no longer these free-moving, smooth, easy kind of cells. They're stiffer, they're harder, and you get these hardening of the arteries. It makes your blood thicker. It causes these plaques to build up. So in general, it's creating this turbulent blood flow, and it makes it difficult for the blood to get through, and it can lead to heart attacks and strokes and all kinds of cardiovascular problems. But see, we know that now.
That affects the limbs.
It affects the whole
everything.
body.
Okay.
Anywhere there's blood vessels everywhere. Now, did you know, back when this started in '76, they started to know, the effects of smoking. But do you realize it's only in our lifetime that they officially said that smoking causes cancer? In 1964, the Surgeon General, Dr. Terry, came out with the Surgeon General's report that officially said smoking causes cancer. And before that, it was never officially linked.
Right.
But that was such big news back then. I mean, now kids grow up knowing smoking's bad for
Right.
them. It's just they inherently know that it's
Sure.
not a healthy thing. But back then, that was such big news that they scheduled the event on a Saturday morning. Why? Because they didn't want the stock market to crash. They thought it was going to have a huge effect on the stock market. They feared for his life.
Because tobacco at the time, and probably
Even
still is, a
then,
big
it was
part
a
of our economy.
billion-dollar industry.
Big part of our economy.
Huge.
Employed a lot of people.
George Washington was a tobacco farmer. Our country was built on tobacco dollars. So yes, the whole makeup of the economy is tobacco is a big part of that. So he was in a room with him and just a couple other people when he made this announcement, because they feared for his life.
Right.
And he made the announcement, and ever since then, the smoking rates have, well, initially they dropped a big amount in the first 10 years, and we've kind of leveled off, and that's why we still continue to do this,
Right.
because we haven't seen a total drop-off. Now, as I was saying before, 1,200 people. If every single day 5 airplanes full of people crashed, do you think anybody would fly? No. Nobody would fly.
And I think the government would spend all kinds of money and resources on trying to figure out why those planes crash.
But yet, every day, that's what's happening.
But we know why people are dying from cigarette smoking.
Right.
So we don't have to spend any money trying to figure that out.
And did you know that lung cancer is the one type of cancer that receives the least amount of research funding? Like breast cancer and prostate cancer,
Lung
things like
cancer
that.
gets the least?
The least amount of funding.
I mean, why? Because they know where it's from? They know what it's
No,
from?
because a lot of people feel you did it to yourself. It's your fault you have lung cancer. When it's not. You know, a friend of mine, and she may be watching, a friend of mine upstate, she got lung cancer, and when she told her close friend, who she had only known for a couple of years, you know, it was the first thing her friend said to her, not, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I can't believe." Her first thing she said was, "Did you smoke?" So in other words, the question wasn't, "Oh, I'm so sorry, you have to deal with this."
Right.
It
The
was,
response
"Did you
wasn't,
do it to
Did you,
yourself?"
did you smoke? Because sometimes you're just looking for the answer of why you got lung cancer and I didn't.
Right.
So it's.
But it sort of
But I
victimizes
get
the
exactly what
person.
you're saying. Oh no, there's no doubt about it. I agree with you. I agree with you that that particular cancer, yeah, I think people associate it that it's self-inflicted.
Right.
But secondhand smoke
Secondhand
is something
smoke,
that we hear, that we've been hearing for the last 15 years or 10 years, that I don't remember hearing as a young person.
Correct.
But I do remember hearing that smoking wasn't good for you.
Have you heard of third-hand smoke?
Third hand? No. Is there really such thing as third hand smoke?
Absolutely.
What's third hand smoke?
Okay, well, first-hand smoke is what you get.
Yeah.
Second-hand smoke is either what comes from the end of the burning cigarette or what's exhaled from the smoker's lungs. That's second-hand smoke if you're exposed to that.
Right.
But you're a smart guy. You know science. All the chemicals and particles, particulate matter in that smoke, do you think it just disappears?
It gets stuck on your walls and your
Clothes and the carpet.
I could smell it when somebody comes home, or even on my own clothes the next day. If you're out in an area where people were smoking, and you pick up that shirt, the next day,
Right.
and you're like,
So
I can
think
smell the
about
cigarette
it.
smoke on my shirt.
So think
Or
about it. You're
in your
outside.
hair, like my wife has long curly
Exactly.
hair. You could smell cigarette smoke in her hair when she.
So now
she used to
you
smoke.
were out
She's with smokers.
smoking or exposed to it. It's on your clothes. You go to pick up a baby. What do you do with the baby?
You hold them close to your jacket.
Yeah, you put 'em
or
on
your,
your hand.
or your shirt.
And so a lot of those chemicals and toxins that are on your clothing and stuff are transferred to their
Right.
skin or their face or their hands, and
Right.
it does have an effect. So
So your
we're
body,
learning-
you absorb all kinds of different molecules through your skin.
Absolutely.
We were just talking recently about, as kids, in science class, they used to give you mercury. And we used to
Right.
put the mercury in our hand and move it all around.
Right, now we
And,
know
and
that.
we absorb that through our skin.
Yes.
As children, and we didn't know anything like that. There's
No.
certain things that the structure doesn't allow you to absorb it through your skin. But so you're saying that third-hand smoke gets absorbed through your skin,
Yeah, or the mucous membranes
Or the
that you touch.
right?
In a car, you were talking about cars. If you go to resell a car and you smoking in it, you'll get less money for the resale.
Yeah.
Houses sell for less if people smoke. Now, if you go to buy things on like eBay or any of these sites that sell used stuff, one of the main things people look for was, does it come from a smoke-free home?
Environment, yeah.
Smoke-free environment, because they know if not, it's going to smell. And
Right.
I bought things that come in the box just smells.
Just smell.
And
We're now sensitized to it, where maybe years ago it didn't, or it was so common that we didn't know.
well, it's been a whole culture change, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
When I first started in the let's go back a step. Do you know what industry was the first to really ban smoking at all? What industry? It wasn't the medical industry.
You know what? I don't know. I don't know. I guess it was somebody who was paying high rates for insurances.
No, it was the airlines.
Oh, because they didn't want you smoking in the cabin?
Well, they found that all the flight attendants were coming down with these strange pulmonary disorders, and none of them were smokers, but they were so exposed in this tight, confined
You're in a
area.
capsule.
So what they did is they didn't ban it. First, they made no smoking zones on a plane. That's like having a no
Yeah.
peeing zone in a pool.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Yeah. It does.
It doesn't
Right.
really cut
Right,
it.
allowing you to pee somewhere in the pool,
Yeah,
but
so-
not over here.
Right. So eventually they banned it, and then hospitals did follow. But when I first started, I remember doing my charts, seeing my patients, doing my charts, writing it with an ashtray right next to me at the station,
Sure.
because you could. Remember smoking in movie theaters?
Sure.
Now, a lot of you watching might not be from New York State, but New York State 10 years ago thanks in part to Senator Charles Fuschillo, who may be watching, passed the Clean Indoor Air Act, which means that you cannot smoke indoors in New York State.
Right.
Pretty much, there's some loopholes, but for basically, if anyone is being paid to work in an environment, you can't smoke in that environment.
Right.
Unless the business is
And
smoking.
that was to protect the workers,
Yes. That was
not
to protect the workers.
specifically designed to protect the patrons.
Correct. To
Right.
protect the workers.
And,
'cause
I-
they
and I don't
have
think people,
to be
I don't
there.
think people really understand that.
No. And do you, right, the bartenders and.
Yeah, specifically, yeah. I
I've
think bartenders
spoken
drove it, yeah.
at length with Senator Fuschillo about this, and he was the sponsor of the bill, and when it was up, he was getting death threats. He had to hire bodyguards because the Restaurants Owners Association and all these other groups figured they're gonna just lose all their business. But you know what happened? Business went up. Why?
Because non-smokers could be comfortable.
Exactly.
And
You got to
smokers
remember,
found a way to have their cigarette on a break or outside.
even then, 75% of the population don't smoke, and they don't want to be sitting eating a dinner with someone smoking right next to them.
Right.
So they weren't going out, and now they went out to the bars and the restaurants more.
Right.
So it really did help their business, but before
How
that,
many years ago was that?
that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
It just passed the 10th
I almost
anniversary.
can't remember being in a restaurant with people smoking.
But you were recently in China. Now,
Yeah.
China happens to be one of the worst countries for smoking. Their government is supported by tobacco
They
dollars.
love smoking, yeah.
Well,
It's a cultural, you know,
the
it's-
politicians are basically told to smoke in public to promote it.
that true?
A lot of the schools.
Young people smoke. All the young people smoke. yeah.
China is probably one of the worst. So when you were in China, people are smoking everywhere.
Everywhere.
And how was that for you? It's weird, right?
It was odd. Yeah, you just were so used not to seeing it that it was just,
Because we're not used to it anymore.
it was weird.
That's right. We've been able to change the culture, at least in New York State, so that, and even smokers will tell you, you know what, I don't want to sit in a restaurant with someone lighting up a cigarette next to me. They enjoy the ability to get away from it too, even if they are a smoker.
Right.
But that is not in all states. Recently I was in Chicago, and they can still smoke in restaurants. There are some
Oh, really?
states, yeah, so it's not across the country. Some countries have banned it, countries that you wouldn't think. France, you can't smoke indoors. Ireland, you can't smoke
The
indoors.
Europeans love to smoke.
Yeah, but they've made rules that said, you know what, we're not going to expose someone else to it. And that's the problem, really, is secondhand smoke we know is dangerous. And if you're exposing me to it, you're exposing me to something harmful, and I did not choose to do that. If you're a smoker, you make that conscious decision. You know it's bad for you. But you say, okay, I'm willing to take the risk. This is I drive 95. I know I could get in an accident, but I'm willing to take the risk. So,
Right.
but when you're exposing someone else to it and they did not choose to take that risk, that's where it becomes problematic. You know, especially kids.
Right.
There are some states that if you're smoking in a vehicle with a child in it, you could be charged because those kids are basically trapped in the car. You see it with the windows up.
I've
and-
seen that before. You just want to like shake those parents and say,
What are you doing?
what are you doing?
You know, today is part of the Great American Smokeout. I went to St. Raymond's School in Far Rockaway,
Okay.
and we gave a presentation to the students. And you know, I said, "So why am I here?" And they said, "Oh, so you can make sure that we don't smoke." I said, "Well, you know what? I really wish I could do that." I said, "But I can't make you do anything." And I know as 12 and 14-year-olds, they don't want to be told what to
Oh,
do.
yeah.
I said, "I'm here to give you enough information so that when that time comes that you have to make that decision, because someone's going to offer it to you. Everyone has to make that decision at some point when they say, hey, try this, whether to try it or not." So I wanted to give them enough information so when that time comes, they can make the decision that's right for them.
Right.
And I think that shows that we respect them and that we're trying to educate them, and that's the best we can do, because if we prevent them from starting, we'll have less smokers.
Now, I've often heard you say one cigarette. damages your body to a
Everyone.
degree.
And that's the difference.
And I don't think people understand that.
No.
They think, oh, well, I only smoke, 2 a day, 3
Correct.
a day, or, I started smoking when I was a teenager and I stopped when I was 25. And
Well,
that's a good thing.
that is a good
it's a
thing.
better thing, but the thing is, don't start. There's no,
That's the
if you
best
could
way.
not start, that's really the best way to do it.
With certain things like alcohol, we know that a glass of red wine can be heart healthy. With cigarettes, even 1 cigarette a week is damaging your blood vessels. So there is no safe amount of it. One thing that you did say, though, is if you quit when you're 25. We do know, and there's a lot of research that shows the younger you are when you quit, the less likely you are to suffer disease from your smoking habit as you get older. So if you quit when you're 75, the chances of you having some smoking-related illness are much higher than if you quit when you're 45 or even 55. So the younger you are when you quit, the less chance of you suffering. Now, does that mean you're completely out of the woods? No, obviously, anytime you do something that's dangerous, there's always a risk. I mean, I quit 12 years ago, and I know there's still a chance that eventually, I'm hoping because I was younger when I quit that I'm negating that chance. And you quit when you were fairly young too, right?
Yeah, I was in my 30s, I guess.
Okay, now, how did you quit? Did you use any products?
I didn't. So
you went cold turkey.
It was just willpower cold turkey. Yeah, yeah.
We know
my
that
kids,
is very
learned
difficult.
in school early. I'm not even gonna say grammar school. Probably was preschool. They started with the smoking's not good for you and blah blah blah. So they were concerned about me, and and that concern led me to say, all right, I'll quit smoking, and that's how it worked for me.
Now, for me, I tried that for years, and I just couldn't do it. The cravings would get too bad, and I would say, the heck with it, and I went back. So what I did is I started to, I'm a medical guy, I read up what's the most effective way, and I started using all of the products out there. I used the nicotine patch, I used the nicotine inhaler, and I used a medication called Wellbutrin, and I used them all together, and I was very successful. I think people who are thinking about quitting, that's one of the things they need to realize is there are some really good, effective things out there to use. Medications, programs. We were offering, the New York State offered patches to a group of American Indians upstate, and no one took advantage of it. They were like, why aren't they using this? It's because they didn't think it would work. But if you show them, and a lot of smokers worry, oh, if I use the patch and I smoke, something bad's going to happen. No, these products work, and you're not going to get anything
Double
wrong that
nicotine
happens to you. No, they really can help you quit smoking. And if you do it the right way, you'd be so surprised at how comfortable you are.
Right.
That we really promote. I know we have a guest that has agreed to come on. You probably know the guest from the Wednesday night show here, Two Guys and a Chick. Bonnie from Two Guys and a Chick. Recently, she came to me and she said, you know what, I think I'm ready to quit smoking. And I've been working with Bonnie a little bit, and she's tried many times in the past, and I think this time she's feeling much better about it. So
I'd like to make some room for Bonnie, if you
Yeah,
don't
why don't
mind.
we-
I'll Bonnie, right here, since we won't make any extra work for Matt, I'm going to give you this spot right here.
Okay. So as Bonnie comes in, welcome.
Hello.
So you all know Bonnie from Two Guys and a Chick. So several years ago, I guess it's about, 8 years ago now, I tried to help you quit. And
Probably, yeah.
And you did okay for a while, but then you went back to smoking. And this time, you're trying to quit, and it seems like you're much more comfortable
Yeah.
this time.
Yeah.
Why would you say that? Do you think your motivation is different this time?
It might be a little bit motivation, but I think it's also more product.
You're using more of this.
Yeah, and different. Like last time, I had the inhaler, which I didn't really like. It was good, but it wasn't for me.
Okay.
I had the patches and I had the gum, but this time I also have the Wellbutrin, which is helping.
Right.
So-
Okay. And what she's talking about from a medical standpoint, there's many ways you can do it. You can just use the Wellbutrin. You could just use a medication called Chantix or bupropion, varenicline. Bupropion is another name for Wellbutrin, or Zyban. So there's a couple different pills, and then there's the nicotine products, which is the patch, the gum, the lozenge, the inhaler, and there's something called a nasal spray. But when you use them in combination, and I think that's the key, is making sure that you're comfortable. And what works for you might not be exactly what works for someone else. And I think that's what you've learned this time, is what works best for you. So you're using the Wellbutrin, and on top of that, you're wearing a patch every day, and that's going to keep you comfortable most of the day. But when you get cravings, you still have something else that you can use.
Right.
And that's, you're using the gums. So you really are using combination therapy, and that's what we find helps. What else have you been doing to try and deal with the cravings?
That's pretty much it.
Are you
really.
having a lot of cravings?
I was in the beginning,
Okay.
not as much now. There are certain times when it's more so than others, like when I'm driving. You know, that's a big trigger for me.
Okay.
So
First thing in the morning, is it difficult?
it was, now not so much.
Not so much. Okay. And it's been now
53 days today.
53 days. Well, good for you. That's awesome. And that's a big deal. 53 days. Do you feel better yet?
No.
See?
Sorry.
No. You know what? That's the right answer. Because I think, now, but if I ask you a different question, I bet the answer is going to be different. Do you find you have a little more stamina, like going upstairs and doing some things that you're not as winded as you used to be?
Maybe a tiny bit.
Okay. And that's the first thing that generally comes back, is the stamina. You know, I think people get frustrated. They quit smoking, and then they say, but you know what? I don't feel any better. So I might as well just go back to smoking because I don't feel any different. You really aren't going to feel a huge change for about 4 to 6 months. But after about 4 to 6 months, you're going to wake up and say, you know what? I just genuinely feel better. I have more energy. I feel like I can do things better. But it does take some time. And I think it's important to realize that, because otherwise you get frustrated and say, why am I doing this? If I'm not going to feel better, I might as well just go back to smoking. But you might not feel better. You might need to stick with it and realize that your body, even though you don't feel it right away, you're going through a lot of changes. You smoked for a long time, so it takes some time for your body to repair itself. Now,
Hopefully not as long as it took for me to decide to quit.
no, and that's, as I was saying before, the first thing that's affected is your blood vessels and your heart, and that doesn't matter how much you smoke. The pulmonary effects, the lung effects, the effects on stroke, it does make a difference. The more you smoke, the longer you smoke, the worse the damage. So when you quit, the things that repair themselves the quickest are your cardiovascular. So even in 53 days, the workload on your heart is completely different. You don't have carbon monoxide in your body anymore. Carbon monoxide is a chemical that robs your body of oxygen. Because when you have a red blood cell, the oxygen can't get onto it if there's carbon monoxide there. And that's why people suffocate from carbon monoxide poisoning. What they basically do is they die of oxygen deprivation. They suffocate. So when you get rid of the carbon monoxide, you have more oxygen in your body. So you're able to get oxygen to all of your cells, and your heart doesn't have to work as hard. Your blood pressure goes down immediately. Your pulse rate goes down immediately. So even in 53 days, while your lungs are just starting to repair themselves now and really clean themselves out, your cardiovascular system is already kicking. It's much further along than you would even think, even in only 53 days. The problem that happens with a lot of people at this point, and I wonder if you're starting to feel that, is the cravings will sometimes increase a little bit, because all of a sudden you're saying to yourself, wow, this worked. Now what? Because it's
Yeah,
a huge change.
Never again. Oh, man.
Right, it's a huge change in your life. I mean, cigarettes were always there for you. Every time you got stressed, every time you wanted to relax or pep up or you didn't know
Or
what to do.
celebrate or
Everything, they were
Everything.
such a part of your life that when you take them away, you miss them. You know, there's so many people that say that it's like my best friend is gone. But it's important to recognize that because it is a big part of your life. It's not just about quitting.
Right.
It's about now what? What do I do when I want to deal with stress? What do I do when I'm bored? What do I do when I don't know what else to do? And you have to think about that and try and change other things in your life. And remember the motivation as to why you're doing it. If the motivation is strong enough, that does help. Obviously, as you've seen in some of the times when you tried to quit, you're like, and it would last a day or two. This time you realize that the longer you go, the better off you are. Now, the one thing I don't know if you did know, and what makes smoking such a relapsing condition, and really by definition, tobacco use is a chronic relapsing condition, which means there's always the chance that you'll go back to it, is in your head and your brain, there's these things called nicotine receptors, and that's what, when you inhale nicotine, they release these neurochemicals that make you feel better. That's
Okay.
what happens when you smoke. Now, once you stop smoking, even though you're using products, those receptors turn off. They go dormant because they're not needed. They're not getting the nicotine they were used to. So every day they shut down, thousands of them. And eventually, enough of them shut down that you can stop using all the nicotine products and you're comfortable. The thing is, they never go away. They're just dormant. So 4 or 5 years later, you go out to a party or you go on vacation, you say, hey, I can have one. Why not? All those receptors light up again, and now very quickly you get right back to where you were. And you'll talk to people say, I quit for years, and then I had 1 or 2, and next thing you know, you're back. So it's really important to not have any to make it easier. And the further you get from your last cigarette, the more comfortable you're going to feel. So I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
I thank you for coming on and to show people on the Great American Smokeout that it is doable. And I know for a long time you didn't think it was doable.
I didn't want to think it was doable. I didn't really want to. I really didn't.
You know what? And I understand that. When I was a smoker, I really enjoyed it. And a lot of people do really enjoy it. And if you're waiting for the day where you hate smoking and that's when you'll quit, that day might not come. You know, I quit smoking because I didn't like what it was doing to me. I was running with my kids one day and I just couldn't run anymore because my lungs were burning. I said, ah. And then I said to myself, you know what, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy who has to sit and watch life go on without me because I can't physically do it anymore. And if there's a way for me to change that and give myself a better opportunity to not become that, well, that's what I'm going to do. And that's why I quit. But I loved smoking. You know, it does. Obviously, people don't smoke because it's horrible. They enjoy it. But once they realize all the negative effects, that's when they say, you know what, maybe we have to think about this a little more. So thanks for coming on.
My
And
pleasure.
congratulations
you.
on what you're doing. As we bring Tony back in here, I just want to let you know that if you are considering quitting smoking, there's a lot of different resources. Every state has a quit line that you can call into. If you go onto any of the government websites and type in quit smoking, you'll find all different resources. In New York State, not only do we have the New York State Smokers Quit Line, but there are a lot of programs that you can go to that can help you quit smoking. Some of them offer the medications for free. Some of them offer all different resources. North Shore University Hospital that I happen to work for in Manhasset, they have an incredible program that's been around for a long time and I am very proud to be a part of. And we have helped so many smokers quit smoking. And you know what, as a healthcare provider, and Tony's back with me,
Hello.
you know, people say to me, well, you're not really, when when I work in a private office, okay, I'm taking care of people who are sick, and I give them medications and an antibiotic, they go home and feel better. So someone says to me, well, when you're working with the smoke, you're not really helping people. But there's a different way to look at it. When you do wellness or health prevention, you know,
Sure.
illness prevention, it's different. What makes the news? You see the little girl that
Sensationalism.
the little girl that got a kidney and she's going to survive, or got a heart transplant. 10-year-old girl gets a heart transplant, she's going to survive, and that makes the news. But what doesn't make the news? Where did that heart come from? It came from another 10-year-old kid that probably died in a car accident. Why did they die? Because they weren't wearing a seatbelt. Why weren't they wearing a seatbelt? Because no one told them that you should put your child in a seatbelt.
Sure.
So health promotion and injury prevention might have saved that kid's heart before it got transplanted. And that's sort of what I do. It's not glamorous, but I would bet I'm saving just as many lives and helping just as many people doing what I do as the people that are working in an intensive care unit. Because you get admitted to an ICU, the quality of life usually afterwards is not all that great. Most
Right.
of the time when you come out, you still have some residual effects. But trying to help people, it's a good thing, and it's a good feeling when someone comes back to me and says, you know what, I never thought I could do it, but I feel great. I had someone come into the office today, her name was Susan, and Susan said, you know what, I never thought I could actually do this, but I am so glad that I did. And she's a teacher, so now she's passing that on to her students.
Right.
And it's just a whole culture of helping. None of your children smoke.
No.
None of my children smoke. So hopefully we're making that change where it's just not something people want to do anymore.
I'm happy with the way things have gone for the younger people, the way they're being educated today. Do you think there's more that they can do at the grammar school level? And I realize you said you were just out of school, but is there something else that we should be doing as just in our case, a state, that we can do more for those children?
What we've
Because
done,
the tobacco companies still target the young people.
absolutely.
They still target the
spend,
young people.
for every dollar we spend to try on prevention, they're spending on 10.
So from an education standpoint, do you have any other ideas, or do you have any ideas that maybe Senator Fucillo can help us with?
See, unfortunately, we would like to think that these feel-good programs that you go to schools and say, oh, you shouldn't smoke, and we'll show you this, and they'll just say, oh, I never want to smoke. You would like to think that they work best, but really research shows us that what works, there's a few things. And that's why we need the states and the government really to support these programs. In California, they had a program aimed at youth prevention, initiation prevention, and their program worked okay. In New York, we said, you know what, we're not going to focus on preventing the youth from smoking. We're going to focus on getting the adults to quit. We're going to focus on helping get the adults to quit, and in turn, that will help drop the youth. And it
Because
has.
children learn, as an example of what the parents do.
Absolutely.
They
So-
see everything you do.
That's number one. Number two, you know what works great with kids? Make it really expensive. New York State has the highest tax on tobacco. Why? Well, because if you're an 8th grade student trying to try cigarettes and they cost $12 a pack, you're not buying them. Does high prices make your established 50-year-old smoker say, I'm going to quit? More often than not, it doesn't. But what it does, it prevents youth initiation. It makes it expensive. Just the other day, Mayor Bloomberg in New York City signed a law now you have to be 21 years old to buy cigarettes in New York City. Does he think that no one under 21 is going to smoke? No, he doesn't. But he knows if you make it more difficult for them to get, you'll have less children smoking. And remember, 99% of people start smoking before the age of 21. There's very few people at 30 that say, you know what, I think I'm going to start smoking.
Yeah.
It's a youth thing. Between the ages of 12 and 18 is when most kids start
As young as
smoking.
12 years old?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We ask our participants to come to our class, how old were you? And there's a lot of them that started when they were 12, 14,
How
15.
do you get cigarettes at 12 years old?
Back then, 20 years ago, if your parents smoked, they could say to you, go to the deli and get me cigarettes.
true.
And you'd walk in and say, my mom wants
My
a pack
mom
of
wants a
this.
pack of,
And
yeah,
they would
True
give
Blues.
them to you. Now
Whatever
that
it
has
was.
changed. But those are the things that are working. Raising the age to buy, making them expensive, and working with programs to help at least give the resources to the adult smokers who want to quit the opportunity to do that. And by doing that, we have seen a huge drop in New York State in the youth rate of smoking. And what's going to happen? Eventually, there's going to be less adult smokers.
Right.
Just this year, we saw for the first time, and if you look at graphs of the highest percentage of smokers, it's usually that youngest group, the 18 to 25. For the first time, they are not the highest. Now they're the second highest. It's that 25 to 35-year-olds that smoke more. Why? Because these programs are starting to work. And that's the problem sometimes with these programs. They need state funding, and when there's dollars that have to be cut, programs like this get cut, and it's hard to see immediate results. We're not going to see all the results of this work probably for 20 years. So you're looking back and say, wow, look at what we've done. But it's not immediate. It's not like, okay, we change this law and by next month we can start measuring the differences. It takes a long time because you're really affecting a whole social change. So it's a difficult, and you know, everyone says, well, shouldn't they just ban smoking? Personally, I don't think it would be that effective.
Right.
Look what happened. They tried to ban alcohol. It just made I think it would just make a lot of addicted
Right,
people into
right.
criminals.
It created
and that's
a
not the
tremendous
answer.
black market.
Yeah, I
that
think the
was,
answer is
not
education.
only was it profitable,
Right.
but the liquor that became available was so much more dangerous than the liquor that was being overseen by the government, that people were dying from, you know, poisons because people
Right.
were drinking rubbing alcohol.
And that
things like
has
that.
happened in New York State. And we can't overlook the fact that since we've made them more expensive, the black market and people getting them out of state and going to the Indian reservations, that has become a problem. But I think we're working with that problem, and as long as we continue to stay on the path, we will reduce the smoking rates.
Right.
And that's why there's a day once a year called the Great American Smokeout that we can focus on this. So I thank you all for allowing me to talk about that. I know there's probably people out there today that worked on different events to help others, and congratulations to you. And let's keep this in the news. If you know someone that's a smoker, say, you know what, I care about you. Have you ever thought about thinking about trying to quit? Because you don't want to force someone. You can't force someone to quit,
No.
but just say, you know what, I worry about it.
But I think it works when your families and your family and your friends come to you and show a genuine concern about
Right.
your health. And I think it works. And it's okay to speak up.
The
I know.
kids today, when I was talking to them, I said, don't flush the cigarettes down the toilet or break them. All that does is make them angry. What you want to do is say, you know what, Mom and Dad, I heard a program at school today, and I'm worried. I don't want you to get sick. Do you realize there's ways to help you quit if you want to? Ways to make it easier? And just show that concern or give them the education. The smoker has to get to the point where they want to make that quit attempt. And that's the approach I take too. Like with Bonnie, she's known for years what I do, and I don't like push her into it, but the minute she's ready and she comes to me, that's when we're able to help.
Right. Let me ask you a question for some of the people
Go ahead.
watching. Is it financially out of reach for people to get these things here in New York State?
What, the products?
Right.
Oh,
If you don't
absolutely
have
not.
insurances and things like that.
You know, a lot of these products are now being covered, like especially the Chantix and the Wellbutrin. A lot of insurance companies cover it, but even the over-the-counter products. Let's be realistic. You can get a box of patches, the generic patches, for probably $25 for 2 weeks. How much you spend in a day on cigarettes? $10 a pack.
Sure,
2
it's
weeks,
smart.
that's 14, that's 100. So doing the math, even some of the more expensive products like a nicotine inhaler, which is about $200 a box, that box will last about a month. So you're still saving money, at least in New York State, where it's so expensive to smoke.
Sure.
So I think we have a couple minutes, but Matt in the control room, he has some questions that they want to ask on air. So
Yeah. Like these products that are out there, they're nicotine replacers pretty much.
Correct.
Without the chemicals from tobacco and all that other good stuff. So basically, you're still addicted to nicotine.
correct.
So are you basically just loaded up on nicotine without the smoke?
And that's an excellent question. Nicotine does not harm us. Nicotine does 3 things in your body. It's a vasoconstrictor, it's an anti-inflammatory, and it's a neurostimulator. And it's the neurostimulation, it's those chemicals, the pleasure chemicals, dopamine and serotonin. That's why you smoke, and that's what makes it addictive. So what we do with nicotine replacement, Matt, is yes, we're still giving you nicotine, but we're giving you a lot less. The dose that you're getting is much lower, and over time we gradually decrease the amount of nicotine we're giving you, so that eventually the nicotine receptors, the things in your brain that are looking for the nicotine, they turn off. So over time, enough of them turn off so that you can become comfortable. So what it really is a long, slow weaning process. If we were just to stop giving you nicotine totally, kind of what they call cold turkey, you could get rid of nicotine in your body in less than 2 days. You'd be completely free of nicotine, but you're so uncomfortable that you relapse to smoking. So the idea is to keep you comfortable enough by giving you just enough nicotine so that you're comfortable, and allowing those receptors to slowly shut down, so that over time it's a slow weaning process. The end goal is to get rid of the nicotine totally.
What is the average timeline of the weaning process?
Usually it's about 3 months. We say 6 weeks on each step of the patch is usually good, and most people by the end of 3 months are able to stop using nicotine totally. Now this does get to be a very personalized type plan, and some people go a little bit quicker than that. Some people end up using the nicotine products for a little longer than that.
Is it based on how long you were actually smoking
No, actually it doesn't.
or willpower?
No, you know what? I have some people that willpower, but I'll use our president as an example. Whether you like him or not, the president of this country probably has a pretty good amount of willpower. He was using the nicotine gum for almost 2 years, but yet he quit smoking. So it's not really willpower, it's a matter of being able to be comfortable. And there's really no rhyme or reason. We take it individually with each person, and when you're ready to stop using it, you will just stop using the products and remain smoke-free. But that's an excellent question, because often people are confused. Well, if you're trying to get them off nicotine, why are you giving them nicotine? You're not replacing an addiction. You're just giving a cleaner form with the intent of weaning them off of it. So, good question. I think that's all the time we have.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you for
and
joining us
Tony,
today. Very interesting topic, and
we will not be here next week.
nope, next week's Thanksgiving. It's Turkey Day.
By now, 7 o'clock, I'll probably be laid back on the couch with a belly full of pie. My daughter's coming home, and she's making my favorite pumpkin pie. My other daughter's going to bake cookies, and
Nice.
I'm going to enjoy them.
I'll have
You're
to,
going to your mother's, right?
I'm going to my mother's. I'll have to be weaned off tryptophan by the end of
We're going to
Thursday.
do a slow wean. That's
Yes.
when you get leftovers with the
Turkey sandwich. you know,
cranberry sauce.
turkey
So,
tetrazzini.
awesome. Okay, thank you all. Tune
Thanks,
in
everyone.
2 weeks from now to Dear Dad. Everyone be safe and do something healthy for yourself. Tony,
Hey,
happy
Dan, thank you very
Thanksgiving.
much.
Matt, take us out of here. Good night, all.